Hey, welcome back to Woodwork by IG. Today we're going to do an updated review of the Stupid Simple Tool Saw Calibrator tool. My last video that I posted was watched by someone from Stupid Simple Tools. They actually responded to me on Instagram through a direct message saying, hey, we agree that one of my critiques, or my first critique, was the documentation is not good enough on how to put together the tool. So they agreed with that. The second was I thought that the tool this is my old tool, in the miter slot, the tool or the pieces that are used to hold the tool into the miter slot securely, they said I was actually doing it incorrectly. And that kind of goes back to the documentation not really being clear enough on how to use the tool. And then lastly, the third piece they said was that the tool that I had should not be having a balance issue. So again, watch that video if you have any, you want to understand a little bit more, although we'll be kind of going back over some of those things today. But I had a balance issue with this tool. So full disclosure, Stupid Simple Tools sent me a brand new tool. I didn't pay for this. They sent this tool to me, and so I decided, you know what, I'm going to re-review it. All right, so we are going to do an unboxing of the new tool that Stupid Simple Tools sent me. Here is my old tool. I'm going to just keep it up here for reference. And yeah, let's see how it goes. All right. So obviously the boxing is kind of similar. So now I'm going to put them back together now that I've opened the box. So the boxing is similar. Cardboard box, nothing fancy there. As you can tell, kind of maybe I had already put this old tool together, but you know, there's some changes to the box. But it looks like the tool itself is about the same color, might be changed a little bit, so a little darker of a red. We'll see how the tool actually performs. And then the only other thing, so there's two things I'm noticing here. So this is the gauge. And it looks like the gauge has changed a little bit. So looks like maybe the font on the gauge has changed a little bit. And like maybe some of the just kind of the indicators, I don't know what to call those exactly, like the measure, like the key, right? If you think about a map and a key, those just changed a little bit. Nothing significant though there. And then this is it. And so there's no QR code. Now, I don't know if they did that on purpose or by mistake, but there's no way to know. If I was a brand new user, there's no way to know right now how to put the tool together like there was here, where at least they gave me the QR code. Again, that was one of my big critiques on the old one, was that this QR code sends you to a PDF. That PDF is not great. I think that, and they responded to me on that. Again, I appreciate that. And overall, I appreciate them reaching out. I think that's awesome. But no QR code in this box, maybe because they knew, you know, they were sending it to me, I already kind of knew and had a QR code here. So let's just give them the benefit of the doubt. They didn't send me the QR code because they already knew. But now let's put this tool together and let me show you how it works. Okay, so this tool requires you have at least two tools, to my knowledge. You're going to basically need two different kinds of screwdrivers. One is a hex. You're going to need a certain size hex here. I don't know what the size is. And that's going to hold in the gauge. And then you're going to eventually need screws to hold the miter piece into the miter slot. So we'll get to that in a second. So, okay, so right, the gauge comes apart from the main body of the tool. And it's pretty simple. You just need to make sure that this piece here, this screw here, which again is a hex bit, is loose enough that the gauge can go in. And I put it together. I don't know if this is like the right way, but it just makes sense that like you put this piece, right, so you tighten it up a little bit so it doesn't move around. But this piece is kind of flush. It helps the gauge sit flush on the tool itself. I hope you can see that. And then you use the screw here to tighten it up. And I wouldn't do it too tight. I would just do it so that, you know, it's hand tight, and then loosen this back up. Put that back there, and then just quick kind of like pull. And that's pretty much putting the tool together. There's not much else to it. But as I said, you're gonna need at least one more screwdriver, I believe. We're gonna need a flathead for the next piece coming up to loosen the miter slot piece. So let's go put it in the miter slot and see how it goes. All right, so I have my old calibrator here, my new calibrator here. And so the first issue was, again, the documentation wasn't great on how to put the tool together and then how to begin to use it. And going on kind of that second point on how to use it, one thing that SST, when they reached out to me, told me about was I was actually using the tool in the miter slot incorrectly. And what I mean by that is these pieces here in my old video, I was using the actual screw side, so this side, to try to hold it into the slot. So what they told me was actually I need to flip it around. And on this side here, there's two small ball bearings. And those pieces are what's supposed to go up against the miter wall, the miter slot wall here, and actually put pressure against the wall to then hold it in place so there's no give, there's no wobble. And so what we're gonna do is, and you know what, I actually am noticing now, these two pieces right here and here are not flathead. So actually, let me show you. All right, so on the old, this is the old tool, and as you can tell, these are actually flathead slots. So these are not hex bit slots. And so they changed that. So with this model that I have, and again, the model is technically the same, but they've made a few adjustments, like obviously the color. But let's see, can you see that? Let's see if I can focus. This is harder to see because it's kind of more of a hole, but these are now hex slots and not flathead. So I need to get a new screwdriver real quick, or a new head. What I was doing wrong was I was trying to use this side of what's now the hex bit, but it was the flathead on the old one, to bump up against the miter slot wall. And what they were telling me was actually that's incorrect. I should be pushing them out because there's ball bearings on these sides, and you can actually kind of see the one here, and you can kind of see the one here. So let me push those, let me screw those forward a little bit to exaggerate, to show you the ball. Let's do this. So now I think you can see there's those two silver balls there, and those are what should be pressed up against the miter slot wall on the inside of the miter slot to help with the wiggle. So I backed them out. We're gonna put them back in the slot. There's a little bit of give. You can hear it, and I'll get a better angle. But right, so you can hear it. So now what I'm gonna do on this one here, I'm gonna get that ball to just poke out a little bit, and then same here. Okay. And now there's still a little bit of room, so I'm just gonna make a fine adjustment here. It might be off camera. All right, so let's try putting this back in. And oh wow, okay. I'm almost too tight. I need to back it out just a bit, but just for demonstration purposes here, there is no room. There's no give whatsoever. This thing is tight in the miter slot. There's absolutely no room for wiggle. So just them letting me know that that's actually how the tool is supposed to work in the miter slot is a huge win. Obviously I wish that they had that in the directions off the bat, but immediately, that's a huge difference. I can tell immediately. So I'm gonna do that with my old one and just make sure that that kind of works as expected. So now I've made the adjustments on both, and they are absolutely in there. I mean, the ball goes in a little bit, so if you push the ball in, you can get a little bit of room, and that'll help you move it. But in terms of just left to right wiggle, there's none. But again, the old one had a flathead. The new one has a hex bit. So those are some differences. And also, one thing I noticed just really briefly, and now I'm going to do a quick test here, is so this bolt here, or this button, controls the ability for you to lock this piece in. So if I loosen it, okay, there it goes. So this one is a little sticky. This is the original one. And this new one here is much smoother, actually. I immediately kind of noticed that. So if I lock this down, it's fine. I don't have to really unlock it that much. It is much smoother than this old one that I have. So that's a plus. The new model, and again, it's not really a new model, but maybe it is a slightly tweaked, maybe the design overall, the SST design. I assume they're using some computer program that designs the piece, and then they manufacture it with the machined aluminum or whatever metal this is machined on. And there's probably millimeter, maybe even smaller differences, but whatever the differences are, I can immediately tell that this just is smoother in terms of the back and forth and the locking down of that piece. So those kind of cover the first two things. So again, directions weren't great. SST agreed with me. They told me kind of how to use that miter slot piece to really lock in the base, and that's a world of difference. I immediately can tell. Now, the third piece of criticism I had was balance. So what I could tell was that on my old one, there was some kind of up and down give, and it just didn't sit super flat on the miter slot, and I can even kind of still do it. Now, I'm being a little exaggerated here, but and let me do a different angle. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but if you can see that, you see how there's like a little gap right here between my cast iron and this is one piece of cast iron here. This is one piece. The second piece of cast iron is here. So obviously if that wasn't level, I understand. But this right here, this is the dividing line. I don't know if you can tell, but this is one piece of cast iron. So it's not, hopefully it's level. I didn't make it. And you can just tell there's just a little bit of wiggle room. So if I was to push this, it's not a huge issue, but if I was to, just put a little bit of extra pressure on the left side than the right side, that was my critique, was that really shouldn't happen, I didn't think. So now let's go to the new one. So the new one, I can tell just doesn't have nearly the same wiggle. And you can see on this side, there's no gap. There's a tiny gap when I push pretty hard on the left. Now, obviously, I'm pretty much popping it out of the miter slot. That would never really work like that. But if I'm to put pressure on it all the way, I would say that's much better. So for whatever reason, again, the designs of the older one is just slightly different than the newer one. And the newer one, I think, has some enhancements to it, and they're micro enhancements, but they do make a difference. I can tell, at least just from playing with it here. The first difference is this slider here is a lot smoother, which is nice. I didn't think it was a huge deal, but it's nice. The next is that it seems a little bit better balanced. So there's just, for whatever reason, the gap underneath here is just not quite, or it's just a little bit bigger than the gap that's used, or like the little resting piece that's used underneath here. And then, as I said, they explained to me how this should work in terms of how it fits in the miter slot, which is a huge game changer, I think, because without that, there was always going to be too much play in the miter slot, and I just hated that. That was going to drive me crazy. And I was even beginning to think, should I buy a new tool? And that was disappointing to think about because, this tool, as I said in my first review, I think it's $75 on Amazon or maybe on their SST site. It's not the cheapest, it's not the most expensive, but it's definitely, for $75, you want something to work and work pretty well. And this tool really only has like one or two purposes in terms of calibrating your table saw and your fence. So $75 is kind of expensive to do those two things, in my opinion. But It is what it is. So I would say overall, you know, I really appreciate, I think SST's customer experience and customer support, the fact that they reached out to me, I didn't reach out to them. I did no communicating to them other than putting up a YouTube video. I didn't even tag them in the video. So the fact that they reached out to me, I think is really awesome. That gives me some confidence in their company and their brand. I think also the fact that they sent me a tool, not only just did they reach out to me and tell me how I could improve my own experience, but then they sent me a brand new tool and said, hey, listen, you know, we agree that something is wrong with that old tool. Let's send you the new one. I think it is a huge win. So overall, I would say that the new one they sent me works really well so far based on my initial tests and unboxing here. And I'm excited to kind of calibrate the tool or calibrate my saw with the tool and get my, make sure my tool is back in shape. So if you have any comments, questions, you like the video, please like, subscribe to my channel. I put these types of videos out every so often. Yeah, hope you have a great one. Thanks for watching.